this is Cheryl O'Hearn, and I am here with Kristy Lammers and Will Hatcher. First of all, Kristy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Lammers Ag?
Kristy Lammers, owner of Lammers Ag in Parkersburg, Iowa, north central Iowa. I'm a channel seed pro. In Iowa, we cover, I don't know, roughly 40 or 50,000 acres between corn and soybeans. So I am about 60 to 80 customers, I suppose, on my roster right now. I don't know if you need to have all that, Cheryl, but yeah. So channel seed pro, we treat our own soybeans here and do a lot of scouting for our customers.
Okay, great. Well, Will Hatcher, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and channel seed and your precision planting? And I believe you're in Kansas, is that right?
I am in the very corner of Kansas, the corner of Kansas that most people forget about. I always joke that it's not the end of the earth, but you can certainly see it from there. We are 60 miles from Colorado and 25 miles from Oklahoma. But again, I'm Will Hatcher. I am from Satanta, Kansas. For those of you who want to figure out how to spell that, it's Satan with a T-A at the end of it, which is always a little interesting for people to learn. I own Hatcher AgCore. We are a channel seed pro and a precision planting dealer. We also sell West bred wheat, SurePoint Ag Systems, GBGI, Yield 360, a lot of other things that go along with. Mainly, we work on planters and air seeders and some strip till bars. We're starting to work on the sprayer market as well, getting new to that and stuff. We do a little bit of mainly just. We don't consult for hire. We do a lot of consulting just mainly to continue to follow up with the seed that we sell and making sure that it's doing exactly what we said it would do in performance wise. This business was started a long time ago. The seed business, my dad had been in it for many years, since the late 70s. I kind of came into it, grew up in it obviously, but then took over I think somewhere around 2015, 2016 from dad, and he still helps me today, but he's definitely taken life a little easier than he had to years ago. But yeah, switched from Pioneer to Channel Seed in 2018, and it's been the best thing we've ever done. And yeah, now we're just trying to go from one dumpster fire to the next.
As we're talking about this, why don't we get into what our audience is actually looking for or wanting to hear? And that's tips and words of wisdoms from both you, Kristy and Will. But, as you're preparing for spring, what are some of the key planter preparation steps that you think farmers really need to be focusing on now that would really help them?
Well, to start with, right now, I don't know about you, Kristy. I'm kind of interested to see what you say here, but in our part of the world, this $4.50 corn is pretty slim on the margin side. And so we've got to do everything we can with the least amount of money we can right now. So first and foremost, I would say, before people are looking to do planter upgrades and spending money on something that may be a better system than what they have, but if they don't work on the maintenance items first, that's I hate for them to spend money on something that should improve the farm, but unfortunately, because they should have spent the money on some maintenance items instead, it actually could hurt the farm. So I would really recommend people paying attention to disc openers, seed tube guards, definitely running your meters. That's an important piece. Paying attention to your closing tails, making sure that they're following true and centered to the row. Your parallel arms aren't wore out. Those types of items, just making sure that everything is functioning as it currently is supposed to 100%, instead of having, a new widget or gadget that you believe is going to help, but unfortunately, because we didn't take care of the 2/3 of the things that were problems behind it, we have now suffered from it.
Well, and Kristy, you're actually in Iowa. Anything different with how you suggest that they get their key planting preparation and going for the spring?
What I focus, primarily on, that's exactly why I wanted to have Will talk about this on the planter side, because for me, you know, that's not something that I see and work with every day, maintenance wise and upgrades and all of those spendy, you know, decisions that they have to make, especially this year. My focus is more probably on the seed and the placement of the seed and making sure that, you know, farmers are planting that seed in the as ideal conditions as we can, you know, weather permitting, I guess. That's the one thing that we always have to consider. But, you know, I very am excited to listen to Will about how he works with his customers, just and thoughts around exactly what you're saying, Will, where, you know, dollars are short. So, you know, how do we try to get it, you know, because we all know that putting it in the ground is the most important thing.
Okay, cool. So, well, let's throw this over to Will here. We're going to talk about planter preparation a little bit more and best practices. So, you know, what are the most common planter issues that you can see can impact your seed placement and yield potential?
I would say the number one thing that I see is too far of wear on seed tube discs and seed tube guards. That is my number one. I even built a special caliper just to go over the gauge wheel to make sure I could measure discs accurately and stuff while they were on the planter when we're doing inspections, because too many times, you know, well, yeah, we should be able to get another year out of them. It really depends on the type of soil you're planting into, as far as, you know, heavy dirt versus sandy soil, as the wear is going to be. And then the manufacturer of the discs. And I'm not going to speak negatively about some, but there are definitely better manufacturers that have a longer lasting life, better bearing packages. And so those are the things that you kind of start paying attention to. And when guys go and say, well, we can get another year. For instance, a John Deere planter, those disc openers come from the factory at 15 inches in diameter. At 14 and a half inches, those discs are no longer usable. So then a guy gets himself into a predicament of having discs that are 14 and 5/8, and maybe they check the shimming with the business card trick and they still believe that they're within spec. Okay. But now that guy is going to go plant 5,000 acres on a 24 row planter. Well, he was probably okay to go ahead and start planting for the first 750 acres. And then after that, they got to 14 and a half, and then they got to 14 and 3/8. And by the time the end of the year gets over with, he's at 14 and a quarter or 14 or something like that. And the last 3,500 acres he planted are all garbage. So, and you can see this. One thing I would tell people as a really cheap, easy way to do some good inspections on your planter to start with is the first day of the year. Number one, don't plan on planting acres. Okay. Just go out and play with your planter, try things out, make sure all your systems are working right. Don't try to, you know, be prepared to dig in the dirt, things like that, so that you're not trying to get acres covered and just saying, oh, that's good enough and let's go on. Lift your closing tails up. It doesn't matter whether it's Case, Kenzie, John Deere, a ratchet strap. There's special tools out there that you can buy, but lift your closing tails up, drive 40 feet. Maybe you don't have to do all of them, but do, you know, 3, 4, 5, whatever. If you do that, you get the opportunity to look at your furrow, number one, for integrity. Number two, you can look at your spacing. You can check for your cleanliness. You can check for how well your downforce pressure is, all by doing this cheap, you know, 3-foot ratchet strap. Lift your closing tail up and drive forward for 40 feet. And you can find out more about your planter than you can do on your hands and knees digging all day long. So there's a lot of little tricks right there that we do. I always like to use my pocket knife to check the sidewall to see whether we have enough downforce, too much downforce. You want to, obviously, like I said, you want to look at your spacing depending on what your population is and make sure that that's computing out. Maybe you have problems with meters. Maybe you know, I had a customer last year that thought he had problems with his meters. As it turns out, it was further up the chain. All of his meters were perfectly fine, but he still was had a ground driven planter and the tire wasn't engaging the ground. And so he was having all kinds of problems with all across the planter. So just little tiny things like that. The attention to detail it matters. And right now we are, again, looking at a very low chance of profitability. And so, those little tiny details that don't cost you anything, but just a little time and a little patience. And man, it can make or break a guy's entire season.
It's amazing how just one little thing can
And it just snowballs.
snowballs the whole thing, everything out there for you. So, when you're checking over the planner before the season starts, what are the top three? Let's just do the top three that you would recommend that they focus on.
I always try, and I'm gonna be a little more generalized, I guess, because there's unfortunately it all matters, like I just said. So there's not just a couple things. It's all the details. But I would, we go with this clean, create, and close methodology at Precision Planting. So, we're going to take our row cleaners and we're going to make sure that we're cleaning properly, that they're set right. Obviously, blades, bearings, all of those things are in function. If you've got air operation, you're going to check that system. The create part of it, that goes back to the discs, the seed tube guards, those things. Maybe your Keaton seed firmers if you have those. In that, the meters are a part of that. We've obviously got to drop things correctly. I recommend people taking pictures of their stands as they come up, as they get further along in the season. That way we can reference back to these in the winter time when we're working on stuff. But and then the closed system. So depending on what type of planter you have, there's different ways that can go. But number one, you obviously want it to actually close and not have air pockets. And that's why, on the creating part, we worry about making sure that we're not creating a V furrow, that we're creating a flat bottom furrow so that we don't have an air pocket. So I guess I would say that, yeah, you got to kind of focus on all three of those systems. There's so many different little things and details that do matter, but if you can focus on that and kind of remember that those three are the biggest important things. There's a lot of stuff that goes to that, but those are definitely the biggest focal points, I would say.
Well, what's interesting is talking about meter calibrations and everything like that. So how do they actually impact planting accuracy? And, what should farmers be looking for in those regards?
So a rule of thumb, and I kind of maybe just a touch on the conservative side but and it obviously will depend on what hybrid you're planting. But for as far as earflex goes, but 2.3, 2.4 bushels will be lost per percent of singulation. So if you have a precision VSET meter, for instance, that we can get to 100% on singulation, life is really good with those things. If you get into say an OEM planter that maybe doesn't have some of the features that a VSET does, and you're at 98% on singulation, you can about count for 4 to 5 bushel yield loss just because of that. I've seen all the way down to, well, I've seen really bad, but it was a little bit inconsistent. But I have had a customer that had consistent 85% singulation. We figured it up on that particular planter with the acreage he had. That 1 meter across the farm cost that guy $45,000 in a year. So, little things like that for something that, we charge very little for, I believe, for what we're doing and fixing. But 97% of the time, I would say that people bring us meters that, even if it's just 1 meter that we find a little bit of an issue with, usually it pays for our bill and then some. So spacing is critical. I guess it's probably even more critical in Kristy's part of the world, because we don't get quite to the populations that the good country does. So we have to, every one of those little plants makes a big difference there. But I would say crowding and all that kind of stuff, you really want precise spacing on all of that. So yeah, it's a very big deal.
When we go out and scout, well, that's probably one of the things in the last 3 years that we've noticed more than anything is right from the get-go is, you know, a lot of times, you know, we always go to the seed and, you know, germination and, you know, things like that right away. Cause, you know, we worry about, did it produce and do what it was supposed to do? But there are a lot of factors that we've seen in the last, you know, 3 years plus, but really in the last 3 years when we started really digging into covering as much, you know, scouting and fields as we have, how bad, you know, like you say, doubles or compaction and all of these things have, if we would plan at 36,000, a guy would be down to 30, you know, 33, 32,000.
Yeah.
And all these variables that are taking yield out. So I just, you know, really think it's important. And I know from our past conversations and different channel meetings that we've been on that, you know, we go back to school on some of these things, and especially in this time. So that's really why I wanted to have you talk about this. I'm so glad because it's already, look how much information. I mean, you know, I know you've been there, seen it, and still learning, and as just as passionate as I am about making sure we get it in there correctly and what we can do.
You know, and I mean, Kristy, the whole reason I even started the precision dealership, and I know I've told you this, but it wasn't because I wanted to build lots of planters. I just was selling channel seed, and I was doing the field checkup series through channel and like we do, and you know, boots to the ground, and you started seeing problems in fields, and you're like, man, what happened to the planter here? Because I know, you know, you can't blame this on the seed when, you know, one's this deep and one's not. And it just, you know, I really hated to go pull in somebody's driveway and say, hey, there's something wrong with your planter. I don't know what it is, but good luck. And
Yeah.
so I was really after the knowledge, and I felt like Precision Planting was the company that I could trust to reach out to. And that's exactly what I did, and just told them like, hey, you have the knowledge that I'm desiring right now. I don't know how this all works and stuff yet, but it you know, kind of was a God thing. But just we started off and started learning, and then I found people to help me out, and you know, it just escalated quickly since then. So it definitely was a need for it in our area, I believe, in the market, and so we've really tried to strive for perfection and just building guys the best possible piece of equipment we can. And what's sad now is that I've done this for, I think this is my 5th year being a dealer and stuff. It's really hard to go walk into a field that hasn't been planted by a planter that we've done, because you're just, wow, there's so many things we need to address right now. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, that's a great segue in there. So let's talk about precision planting and how that technology has changed the way farmers are approaching planting season out there. What, you know, let's go that direction here.
well, number one, Precision Planting is really neat company to work with. A lot of good people, good Christian people, just, you know, willing to help. And that's especially when you're starting off and you don't have a clue about anything, that's a huge deal. But I had somebody tell me at Precision Planting this last winter when we were there for training that said, you know, we would probably still be using springs and you know, old style pieces of equipment on this planting deal if it wasn't for Precision Planting. They have changed the market over the last quarter century so far that you know, we have gone from everything mechanical and no real knowledge of what was happening with the planter to now, well, you know, my smart farmer says that I shouldn't be planting because the soil moisture isn't there. Or, you know, I mean, there's just all kinds of conversations that these guys would have never had it not been for the technology that they've been able to acquire through precision planting. So I guess, you know, the best way to put it is we have this wonderful tool with all of these different parameters at our fingertips now. And for us, especially where, you know, we don't get rain to fall from the sky like Kristy does. And so we have to either pump it from the ground or just, you know, say a couple extra prayers in church and hope or whatever. But we now have tools to give us a much better informed decision as to whether we should be out here planting, if we can get to moisture, if we can't get to moisture. You can change how your planter is set up because of these tools. So to me, you know, the next decade is going to show a lot, and there's going to be a lot of changes, especially out here. But people without those tools are you know, going to have to try to adapt and overcome not having them, because the tools that are given by precision planting really help us make a lot better decisions, and hopefully that's a good economical impact for us too.
Right. So, you know, as we're talking about precision planting tools and technology, what do you see making the biggest impact on uniform emergence and stand establishment for these farmers?
Hydraulic downforce. 97-98% of the time I can not look at a customer's planter if they, you know, want to do an inspection or whatever, and just comments they'll make, emergence, you know, late planted. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the day 1 through 4 emergence testing kits from Precision Planting, but you know, you'll hear about a lot of day 4s or day 3s. Hydraulic downforce, delta force from Precision Planting solves a lot of those problems. It allows you to continue to keep constant depth with all the changes that happen throughout the field, whether it be a wet spot or a dry spot or a hilltop or a valley. It's constantly making changes based on what the load cell is telling it, so that you can, I mean, you don't even have to make changes. It automatically is making these changes for you. And that keeps you at a 99 to 100% constant ground contact, where, you know, you may have had a pile of trash or whatever the case may have been that you rode up over and didn't have the ability to get seed to depth at that particular point. I've seen a customer who actually had to swing out around a piece of natural gas equipment in the field, and he took 3-4 rows and had to plant into the county road just a little bit or whatever. And he sent me a picture of this perfect stand in the county road because it had over 500 pounds of downforce. It automatically had changed. And, you know, we were joking about that's how you add acres to the farm right there. So delta force, hands down for sure, is the number one thing for me that can solve a lot of problems for customers, especially with our topography changes and soil type differences out here.
Well, and so, you know, what are you seeing as new advancement or trends in the planter technology that you really think the farmers should be aware of this spring?
You know, again, everybody's going to be pretty near and dear to their wallet right now. So we're kind of to the point, you know, there's maintenance items and things, but we're filled up on builds and being able to get anything else in the shop and stuff right now. But as far as technology goes, there are some things, you know, if you're on an OEM system, especially, there is a deal called Seed Sense from Precision Planting. That's a pretty easy install. It's not a lengthy deal. It's, you know what you're doing. It's probably a 2 to 4 hour install, depending on the size of the planter. And we can set up a screen in the cab that basically we just rob the data from your OEM planter and try to change some of the algorithms that maybe tell you things that are doing better than they actually are, and show you real data as to what's going on there, and give you a few more parameters as well, just to see how things are going. I must warn you though, you put that system in, you're probably going to want a full precision planter pretty quick, because you find out some things that maybe aren't doing quite what you thought they were. But getting as much information in the cab as you can is going to be critical for those who, you know, use whatever data platform you care to capture your data with, whether that be a live or a little bit delayed message to you. You know, we can't all be in the cab and, you know, on the phone and in the pickup and, you know, getting seat, you know, all the things that happen, and it's just a circus every day. And so being able to have information at your fingertips as to what's going on in the cab, if you're not in the cab, is huge. And so it doesn't matter if you have very limited information, whether you have, you know, to have data, you need to have parameters, and it's not just one or two. You need to have more and more things. So when you call your seed dealer in a couple of weeks and say, hey, my corn doesn't look like it's coming up, you sold me bad seed, and we go out and we find out that the planter didn't perform right, things like that. So the more data you can capture, the more information you can put on your planter to capture data, it's going to change how we do things and make our decisions moving forward for years and years to come.
Great. So, now that we're getting into the spring time really soon, we hope anyway, there's always are challenges and watch outs for spring planting. So, what are some of the key environmental or soil conditions farmers should really consider before they start heading into the field this year? Anything special?
Well, so Kristy, what do you like to see for ground temperature when you guys start planting?
I mean, ideally warmer, as warm as we can, but I think, we try to, I'd love to see it in the 50s, but how that is, right? So, but my guys, I will say this, my guys do hold off, and try to plant in warmer conditions. So I'm lucky that way. I don't have a whole lot of guys that are in a big hurry. I think, they've seen what that can do as well, with ideally the you want the plant to come up in 17 days or sooner, and after that, I think we get some lag. You could arguably say yes or no, but I don't know if I'd like to see the plant in the ground that much longer than that. Well, you can say that. I mean, we have some heavy soils up here. We have guys that push as soon as they can to get product in the ground. What I've seen out there is, right across the road from each other, a guy that planted 3 weeks ahead and not in ideal conditions and probably maybe mudded it in a little more. And a guy that planted 7 days, before they came up the same time. So in other words, guy planted 3-4 weeks and it sat in the ground, or 2-3 weeks later and they came up the same time and I actually watched that last year. I markered it, so I think, I love to say, and we talk a lot about what we're doing with channel and germination testing and all the advancements we've made in that here, even in this last, year or two. But, I think, guys are going to go, a lot of times, or, that's just the way it is. And that's why, for me, it's so important on the, on the planner side of it, where I don't have, that's exactly, again, why I have you on here, is because it's such a vital tool besides the seed. Obviously they go hand in hand. And I mean, if you're not putting that in the ground at, the best we can right from the start,
absolutely, it's over. So
we're losing. And we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it. And the one thing when we go out and scout, which is great, we scout everything. We scout us, we scout competitors. I mean, whoever's on the ground, and we show what it is, whether whether we have skips, whether we have spacing, whether they do, what's really going on out there. And I'm so like you, what is going on out there? Because, I'll give you a story for me. I had a customer said, oh man, this is just not emergent. It's terrible. Why, this seed's bad. And I'm not saying, hey, once in a while we have seed that's bad. I'm not saying that never happens, but, I said, so when I went out there and I took our agronomist out there from channel, I was, we saw other things. We saw a lot of things. We saw a spring at hydrosburn, we saw compaction, we saw, emergence at different times, and like you say, that 1, 2, 3, right? When you say day 1 through 4, and I kept, and it's hard to go and say, hey, here's what we're seeing. A lot of times you got to take them out there, or you take pictures, and so glad that we do that, because not to say, hey, it's not our seed. It's to say exactly what you're saying, Will. We want to help you so that it isn't a problem next year, or, that we're getting better every year. Absolutely. And I think, for me, I went to that same field 4 times. I finally called him and texted him. He works full-time job at actually John Deere. But he's like, you're out there again. And I said, I'm just having a problem because, I checked the lots over here and we've got so many acres of this same lot out and not seeing the emergence issues, really I don't want to say anywhere else, but not really anywhere else. And we got to figure this out. So it ended up being one of his planter sides, one of his rows. He ended up finding the problem himself after we kept after the question of why. And I think that's so important because, you know, ideally we want to help them.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the name of the game. If, you know, I always joke that and I not joke, I always say that, you know, if my customers aren't successful, then I'm not successful. It doesn't matter how much seed I sell or how many planters I build. If my guys are struggling and going broke, then I'm not doing my job. And so I just feel like we, you know, everything we can do to help, you know, down here, obviously we warm up a little quicker. So every year I do have to have a few conversations of please park the planter and go take your wife shopping or something or whatever, but let's do something else because you know, I don't want to come back in 2 weeks and go, yeah, no, it's yellow because it came up in really cold temperatures. But so you know, we're doing everything we can to help these guys. And you know, I guess I always try to focus on being a partner with their deal, you know, their farm, because I'm not you know, I'm not here just to sell the world's most amount of seed. I love watching a crop grow, and I love being a part and feeling like I'm a part of, you know, a guy helping feed the world. That's a really noble, you know, work, I guess. And I just feel like that's, you know, something that I guess it just came by naturally or whatever, but that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
My next question was going to be, you know, what are some of the mistakes that you think farmers make with their planters and avoid? And I think the one word is why. Not asking the question why is probably what you could say is one of the biggest mistakes that they can make.
I would say honestly, yes, asking why. You know, I get it. A lot of, you know, every farm has gotten bigger or they've gone away. I mean, I hate it, but that's, you know, the true reality of it. We're less farms that are bigger, and so they're trying to cover more acres and stuff like that. Truthfully, a lot of the times it's, you know, going ahead and planting, knowing that things maybe aren't quite right. You know, storms coming, we need to get this circle done, whatever it may be. But I would say that just patience is huge, and I get it. I really do. And there's times for patience, and there's times for, you know, go. We always joke that, especially when we get to dry land and it's Milo season out here, that every planter becomes a high-speed planter, and we just trying to be done with it. So yeah, the focus and diligence of, you know, making sure that planter is planting at the peak performance all the time. However that works in your operation, whether it's, you know, the planter guy, you know, has enough, you know, has help or whatever in the morning that they do regular maintenance to or whatever, things like that. But I would just say focusing on making sure that that thing looks and is operating as it did on day one.
I got a question for you also. So, and how many times, I know pulling into every field obviously is ideally, but especially as you get started and as you maintain planning throughout the season, what is precision, or what do you say to your farmers as far as going out and checking seed depth? How far behind, how many times, you know what I'm saying? Because I think we sometimes, like you say, we get, you know, we hate to say we get in a hurry, but it is what it is. And the weather's coming or what have you, or we're behind planning, but you know, things that I don't want to say like, right. I don't want to say like, go back to basics, but it's kind of like we talk about with channels. Sometimes we think about a lot of other things. We need to go back to basics.
So there's a beautiful tool here, and I use it. I don't sell it, so I'm not promoting anything here.
Yeah.
But there is a tool called Set and Seed. Okay. So every planter in the United States should see this tool at the beginning of the year. And so what you do is you basically take a floor jack, you jack up your row unit by the gauge wheels, and you set that planter at 2 inches, and you make a mark on each side of your T handle or however your mechanism works as to that is exactly 2 inches. So then your discs are touching the bottom. It's a U-shaped. It has multiple steps that you can put in there, but we set every planter that we build at 2 inches. Okay. And I will tell you this much: if you have a planter and all of your T handles are in the exact same spot as the rest of them, whether it's 12, 24, 36 rows, doesn't matter. If I see all those T handles in the exact same slot all the way across the planter, I know it's wrong, guaranteed. There's way too many moving parts, castings, tolerances, all of that stuff. So we go through the entire, every row unit, and we set them at 2 inches. Now, we like to plant 2¼ to 2½ inches here. So we'll move it on down from there, but then we paint mark that on each side. And that way that customer knows on that row, that is 2 inches. So that when we go to make our depth changes, we are making an accurate depth change. So we don't have one at 1¾ and one at 2 and one at 2¼ I've seen at least a ½ inch of difference between row units. And so you set all of that, and that is exactly 2 inches. You can then move forward with all your depth changes, whether it's a shallow planted or a deeper planted crop, but you know exactly there. That will save you a mountain of time, because if you don't, then you need to dig every row and it's going to suck. So now that we have all of the rows set exactly to the same depth and we can make the adjustments, then you can trust that 2, 3, 4 rows worth of depth checking is plenty. I definitely would recommend doing that closing tail lifting deal, because, you know, on your knees digging and all that stuff. And I don't know about you, but I always suck at trying to find a seed. It feels like, oh God, where is this stupid thing at? What did I do? And so lifting a closing tail, you can learn more in 2 minutes than you could have by digging all day. I promise you. So definitely using that ratchet strap method again, because that helps you with that just as well.
Okay.
Hey, well, so as we're wrapping up this session and learning, and boy, we put a lot of learning in just 30 minutes here already.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we go this a little direction a little bit? As if you are, well, a farmer and you could do just one thing to improve that planter performance this season, what's the one thing you would recommend, Will?
If you don't know all of the details, find someone who does. Because there's not just one thing that needs to be looked at. There's 100 things. And if you don't know, or, you know, if you don't know a precision planting dealer in your area, and that doesn't have to be precision. Just, you know, making sure that as long as you have a trusting OEM that you prefer to use, however it works, make sure you have a planter expert as part of your operation somewhere, whether it's OEM, precision planting. Really and truthfully, that's probably the most important piece, so that you have someone to call and reference to when things don't go right in the field. But when you're wanting to make sure that you've got everything set right, if you don't have the knowledge, don't be afraid to admit it and just ask for that help, because that's going to be the most important thing you do.
Great comment. So, okay, one more question for you, Will. How can farmers connect with you better and your team with precision planting and your planter setup programs?
As far as like our contact information, or
yeah, your contact information. How can they find you?
Yeah, obviously we have HatcherAgCore.com. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram. I'm learning the whole Snapchat thing, but I've got to have my son help me a little bit more on that. I'm still
TikTok.
Yeah, I have it, but I haven't made any videos yet. It's the content creating is something we're still working on, but and a lot of these things that we talked about today, I've been trying to figure out, you know, ways to do that, and we need to just kind of get some equipment and set that up. But yeah, we have a lot of the social medias. My phone number is obviously posted on our website as well, and other social medias and stuff. But call me, text me, however it works. But again, if it doesn't have to be me, just reach out to someone and make sure that you're getting some help with your planter that you know and trust. And if you want to make sure and that they know what they're saying, and you want to just ask me real quick, by all means, we'll make sure that you confirm that your planter expert is a planter expert. But I just, like I said, doesn't have to be me, just find somebody.
Great advice. Great advice there. How about you, Kristy? How did we get a hold of you?
Well, I mean, lammersag.com, again, Snap, I'm Facebook, Twitter, the same as Will. But I think the most important point here is this. I would say what, Will, 5 years, like you say, 5 years. Probably one of the first seedsmen that you talked to when we went on the channel trip. I remember the night exactly. We talked about our dads being on the business but the common thing that Will and I right away bonded with is the passion to help our customers. And I talked about how do I get this type of knowledge out to our customers at Lammers Ag. I know that, we have P&K here and I know there's John Deere, and we're not promoting one brand or the other, like Will's saying, but it's just, knowledge is power. And Will has got a lot of knowledge about not only seed, but planter and being out there and doing it, day to day. But it's the passion that has connected us on how do we truly help our partners. And that's, to me, is you can't replace that.
And that's
anything
also
else.
That's what's made us so good of friends too, because we understand each other and know where each other's coming from. Because it's we have our challenges that we have in our businesses and things like that, but I know no matter what, and I see Kristy's really good about getting things on social media and neat content and stuff, and I appreciate that because she's way better at it than me. So it's like I still have a bar that I keep trying to get to, but it's like, oh man.
Well,
but
me with your planner.
But I know that Lammers Ag is doing everything they can to help their customers. It's not about being wealthy or anything like that. It's about being the best you can be for the guy in front of you or the gal, and you just you go from that to the next one and just keep trying to help people. And that's where we're both at, and that's what's fun for both of us to talk about these things.
Great. Well, if they haven't figured out that you two are experts and care about your customers out there, and not even your customers. I mean, you take the time to do this to let everybody know what's going on out there and give them some advice and reach out that. So thanks so much, both Will and Kristy, for getting together today, and we'll be doing more of these out there. Watch, and we'll let you know what's going on. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.